Welcome back to another episode of Was That Trauma? I'm Audra.
And I'm Courtney.
It has been a couple weeks since we've been on, but we did a TikTok live where we did a live podcast. And then last week, we had an incident outside of an Ulta that was so traumatic, it prevented recording of our podcast.
It was very traumatic. It was life-changing, life-altering. So we were having a good time. We were having like a girls type of moment. And we had my son's getting ready to graduate, so we were preparing for that earlier in the day.
And then we got Party City.
Yes.
That was some of their last days.
Sadly for them, fortunately for us, they are going out of business. So we were able to get some supplies. We went to Ulta, and when we were coming out, I guess a wasp had decided to land on the back of my leg. I didn't know, but I felt like a sharp pinch, and I just thought, oh, maybe it's like a hair or something in my pants. And I got in the car and I sat down, and then I kept feeling it, and it was getting more and more severe and sharp. I was like, what the hell is happening? And I was looking in my pants. I couldn't see anything. And I was like, you know what? I'm just being crazy. I got my Billie Eilish perfume. I took it out to smell it, and I dropped it. And so
luckily dropped it.
So I'm reaching down the floor. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. I'm still getting the sharp pain over and over again.
Yeah, she keeps slapping her leg.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. This is weird. And so I get out of the car so I can bend down and get it. And then Audra starts telling me there's a huge wasp on my seat.
Yeah, so I look over and I see it crawling on the seat. It was so creepy. So I think she knocked some sense out of it, and it couldn't fly anymore. So it was crawling.
I was essentially sitting on it, and it was stinging me to get off of it. And I did not realize. And I freaked the fuck out. I was like, no.
So I was a brave little soldier, and I grabbed some paper or whatever was in the car, and I was hitting it. And Courtney was like, okay, is it dead though? Is it dead for sure? And I said, it has to be dead. I was really hitting that second one. I was smacking the crud out of it. And, but I got out, because I think also her perfume was still on the floor too. And I went to her side because I was still on the passenger side. So I got out, went to her side, and that wasp was not dead. And it was crawling up the console, the center console, like a little zombie wasp. And it was disgusting and gross. And I had to grab a tissue to officially squish it, and I twisted it, and I did all the things.
She said, do you want to see it? I said, no.
It was so big. It was so big, and that was gross.
It was yellow. I'm wondering if it was a yellow jacket maybe, but it was,
I think it was.
It was pretty big. I have never been stung by a bee. I've been stung by ants. I'm sure I've had a spider bite, but I've never been stung by any.
Had to have a spider bite.
But I've never had any wasps or bee stings. I was like, am I gonna die? It was very dramatic. It was so stupid.
She was really freaking out. But I mean, you can be allergic to those things. Now, I learned at an early age that I wasn't allergic, because I have gotten stung by bees before, but I was thoroughly surprised that she had not been stung before. Yes. She is 39 and had never been stung. And no, that blew my mind, to be honest.
It was, when we got back, Audra looked to see if there's a stinger in there, and then it just kind of was sore for a couple days. But then it's fine.
Got some ice.
Yes.
Yeah. It
was so dumb. But I was just I told her, I was like, if you weren't here, I would have got out of the car, shut the door, called my brother, and said, I need you to do something about this, because I'm not touching this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can be a brave little soldier when somebody else needs me to be a brave little soldier. But if that had been me and my husband was in there in the car with me, if I had been by myself, I could have been a brave little soldier. But if my husband was with me, I would have turned into a little girl and been like, yeah, you have to help me, the bees on me, I can't do it. But that was a creepy situation.
It was gross. It was my nightmare.
Yeah, I had gotten stung by bees before. Like, I think I have the classic childhood story of me and my sister playing in the backyard. We had a swing set in the backyard, and we had one of those that actually were like seats, and so you could you swing back and forth. Yeah. And so we were swinging, and I guess the bees had made their home in there, so we were rocking back and forth, and that triggered them. Ugh. And we were getting stung. I got up and I was like, Heather, come on. It's my sister. I was like, come on. She was paralyzed in fear.
It was fight or flight.
Yeah, she could not. So I ran in to get my parents, and they came out and got her. But she was freaking out, and she got stung a lot. I got stung a little. She got stung a lot.
Oh my god.
So I'm just so surprised. Like, even there was a time we were at the park. My dad was playing. He's in a men's league soccer, and my uncle and his kids came, and one of them is allergic. Oh, yeah. They were up in like the metal rocket ship. Do you know those classic metal rocket ship playground things? So he was up in the top, and there was, I think it was wasps, but up there, and he got stung, and he had to be rushed to the hospital and stuff. But I'm really surprised you've made it this far.
I've been really cautious of them. They terrify me. You know what I think it was? Remember that, what movie was that, where the little boy Macaulay Culkin gets all the bees?
My Girl. That's one of my favorite movies.
Saw that when I was little, and I think that, and also, fun fact, so when I was little, I also saw Candyman, the original one.
Right.
Do you remember the scene where the little boy?
I didn't watch it all the way through. I didn't watch Candyman. That was one of my mom's favorites. Like, she would watch it a lot, and it was on TV a lot.
Yes. There's a scene where this, like, I think it was a kid. My memory says a kid. Maybe it's all, I don't know, but I know what happened. There was a scene where, like, he flushes
the toilet.
Yes, he flushes the toilet, and then all these bees come out, and he starts stinging him. And I will tell you, as a little child watching
that, did he say Candyman like 3 times? Because he probably did, and he was asking for it.
But as a child, what I knew was, as a small child watching this movie, what I knew was bees come out of the toilet and sting you multiple times.
Bees come out of the water of the toilet.
Yes, to the point where for years, even almost probably into adulthood, for years, I would not flush the toilet if I was sitting on it.
Oh my!
I'm not joking.
God.
For years. And when I was younger, it was to the point, like, when I would flush and run from the toilet. Like, I would run. Wow. I try to get away from it. That is how much
your reality is so distorted, because we're almost the same age.
No. I only within the last maybe 10 years started flushing the toilet while I'm still sitting on it. I'm not joking.
My face is agape. My jaw is to the floor.
It's just, look, trauma.
I cannot. That is wild, madame. You fully know what is real and what is not.
Yeah, so true story. Bugs freak me out.
I cannot.
You know, on top of that, my brother, I mentioned it in our
on the TikTok live
one, but my brother, when my parents had asked him to watch me one time when I was little, he just lined my door with dead bugs. And so I just cried at the door.
Not with him.
So my relationship with bugs is not great. That being said, I don't mind reptiles. I'm good with snakes. I'm good with frogs. I'm good with all the reptiles. But bugs, I don't want to get stung.
Yeah,
and here we are.
I feel like she brings that up because on the TikTok live, I mentioned that I was cleaning out the shed with my sister. It was at my aunt's house, and we were getting rid of a bunch of things. So it's a cumulative stuff of my mom's, my aunt's, my grandmother, who's now passed away. They have 3 sheds in their backyard. One has holiday decorations. That's fine. The other one we cleaned out, and this is the third and final one that we have to get through. And my son has been asking for a typewriter. He saw one at Goodwill, and we didn't get it for him right then. We went back to get it. It had already been taken, the lady said, by a college student who wanted to use it for his papers, which is great. My aunt, when we cleaned out the middle shed, had a couple of typewriters in there, but we did not take them at that time. And but luckily with this other shed, there was a box of typewriters as well. So there was 2 more typewriters. Who knows if there's another box of typewriters further back, because we was only able to get to half of the shed, which is a massive feat still. And so I was getting down the box of typewriters and put it down. As I opened the box, there was one that was wrapped in like a trash bag, and it's so old. As I was touching the trash bag, it was literally disintegrating in my hands. I had never experienced anything like that before. Like, I could barely touch it,
Ugh.
and it would fall apart.
Yeah, I've been there a while.
I have never experienced it before, and so I called my sister over, and because I wanted to show her, like, oh, look, I can barely touch this, and it just falls apart. And so I'm showing her, I bend down, and a dead gecko falls right in front of us, and I swear to you, I bet it was in my hair. There was plenty of dead geckos in that shed because, it's the area. And they're, trying to hide out, and then they get like trapped in there probably from the heat and all that stuff, and they fry. So there were other dead geckos. Only one landed, I believe, in my head, but I know it had to come from my head because I bent down, and that's when it fell. I bent my head over, and it fell right in front of us, and I freaked out, and I cried, and it was just the worst. And I could feel that dead gecko on me like the rest of the day. I did muscle through eventually. I was a big girl after a while, and I did not even care to look at that typewriter because forget you. But there was another one that was in a like thick plastic bag, and that one was in perfect mint condition. I don't even know if it's ever been used. So my son has that, and we just have to get some ink for it because the ink's dried out. But
so fun. I like that. Oh my gosh. I think the only other weird bug thing didn't happen to me, thank goodness. I worked when I worked in San Antonio, Texas, I worked at a resort, and when you're walking around that resort, you can there's a lot of those resorts have tunnels underneath, like the hotels, so you can get around the hotel pretty quickly, but you can also just walk outside. And this resort's like in hill country, so there's wild bugs and there's wild animals and all those things. And this did not happen to me. I was there, and it was enough for me to not want to walk outside anymore. My boss had come back from walking somewhere, and she walks in. I didn't look at her when she came in. I was on the phone or something, and she came in, and she walks to her office, and I guess she sits down. Then I hear, "Oh my gosh!" So I run over there, and there's a centipede, a black and red centipede with those sharp little tooths and everything, the little whatever things, crawling all over her desk.
Oh.
It had fallen on her hair, and she didn't realize it. And it had to have been a good 8-9 inches. It was big. And it was crawling all over her desk. And when she leaned down to look at something, it fell out of her hair and onto the desk.
Oh my God. I feel your pain, lady.
And she was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm not touching that. And I just walked out.
You're the worst.
No, we had people for that.
You have to be brave soldier.
No, we had loss prevention for that. They had to come in and take
loss
it.
Loss prevention.
Yes, that's our security. We literally called them, and they came in and took it. But then whenever I watch outside, I constantly kept looking up, like nothing could have followed me.
Put the centipede under arrest.
murder it. That was an interesting place to work. I really liked working there.
Isn't it the centipedes? Is it the centipedes or the millipedes that are evil?
And maybe it's a millipede. I don't know the difference, but it was black and red, and it had little sharp toofies in the front and the back.
I didn't realize until we started watching those videos of that with that guy that has things bite him all the time.
Oh,
how
yes.
evil some of those
Ugh.
millipedes and centipedes. I didn't realize how they really bit. I
Mm-mm.
didn't.
Mm-mm.
I always almost think of everything as one of those little green tomato hornworms or something.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that
Mm-mm.
place was a cool place to work at. There was one time when they had like wild animals there. I think they were doing some maybe hunting exhibition or something. And I was,
Hunting exhibition.
yeah, like there was like all sorts of like in one of the ballrooms there was probably guns, I don't know. And then there was a lot of
It
like
is Texas.
there was like bows and arrows and like the little hunting things. I don't know anything about hunting, but those little tower things that go on. It was like they were selling like one of those things. But I finished the day out and I walk out of the building. I'm going through and I check out, and as soon as I open the back door, there's a buffalo standing maybe 10 feet away from me, and I just looked at it and I turn around, I walk back in,
Yeah.
and lost, yeah, well, lost,
Excuse me.
yeah, well, lost prevention's right there, and I said, when I walked back, I said, so there's like a buffalo out there, and they're like, oh yeah, they're trying to find him, so just like hang out here for a little bit, they're coming. He got loose. And now they're like, he's just a baby though. He was huge. He was a big guy, but he was like, he's just a baby. It'll be all right. Just stay here. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I know earlier we were talking and when you were reliving your bee story,
Yes.
and you're also talking about your little traumatic event that happened when you were younger with a dog.
With a dog. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what's funny? So just wild animals in general just they creep me out. But when I was younger, I was attacked by a dog. But just speaking of that buffalo, it was also funny. This year, me and my brother and my son went to
I went with you first.
I know, but this didn't happen to us. We got lucky. Me and Audra went on a hiking trip to the Palo Duro Canyons here in Texas, which I didn't know existed. They're, if you don't know, they're the second largest canyons in the U.S. And they're absolutely beautiful. But the next day we went to Caprock Canyon, which is about an hour and a half away from there. And if you live in Texas or you don't know, Audra and I both agree the Caprock Canyons, though it's not deep like the Palo Duro, absolutely gorgeous. So beautiful.
I like that one better.
Yes. But that being said, they have wild buffalo. So Audra and I saw tons of buffalo. Like we were very fortunate. And when we went to the visitor center, they were just laying there. We weren't like worried about nothing. They were living their life. When my brother and my son and I went, there was not as many buffalo. However, we went like real like down the mountain hiking and really got into it. we got out of the car, and as my son was walking into one of the openings that we were going to go hiking in, 4 buffalo came out. And so we got back in the car as quick as we could, and we were just waiting. They just stood there maybe 20 feet away from the car just staring at us, and we're like, we're not moving. We couldn't drive away because there was like, what do you call it? It's like the road where you park, the little hump thing that stops you from going anywhere. And so we were just kind of stuck there. So that was kind of scary. And then when we were hiking, kind of just me and my son, and then my brother was on the other side looking at something. Me and my son were hiking, and we were looking at the poo because it was kind of morning time, and there was poo, and we were like, "Well, what kind of poo is that?" And so Google will tell you the best that it can. And so the poo we saw looked like it was cougar poo. It turned out, and Texas does have mountain lions. They don't really see them that much. They said they exist there, but they don't see them because they don't want to be around people.
Right, yeah.
So, but their poo was everywhere. So we were like, that's cool. Me and Aiden my son and I were just enjoying looking at things. And we heard this woman making these weird, like, not like pain noises, like this weird laugh, but it sounds like a cry, but she's clearly laughing noise. And then all of a sudden, to our right, we heard twigs snapping. and I couldn't see it.
Oh.
Oh, yes. And so I couldn't see it. Aiden sees it and he goes, that's a mountain lion. I said, are you sure? He said he
Like,
saw.
stop playing
Yes,
with me.
yes.
This is silly.
This was the moment I realized. This is the moment I realized that I am a flight person. So I said, are you sure? And I said, how do you know it's not a deer? He goes, Mom, I saw the tail. I saw the legs. That's a mountain lion.
Like, let me just peek to make sure.
Yeah. I said, let's go. We have to leave. We have to get out of here. So, but it didn't come to us. It was just trying to get away from those noises and probably from our noise as well. I found out later that we should have told the rangers.
Oh,
Yes.
really? I wouldn't have thought about that either because they live there.
Yes.
Well, so why am I going to tell you about an animal that's living there?
I didn't know that, but I thought where I was looking was either their website or something. I was looking at something and it said, make sure you tell the rangers. They don't do anything about it, but they want to know what's there, what's active. So they have an idea of, I guess, I don't know, nature or what's going on, whatever. Why are they there? That sort of thing. So anyway, that was crazy. But yeah, when I was younger, I was in 3rd grade. And I was walking home from school and there was this, I was almost home and there was this one dog, it was a chow. And whenever I would go to my friend's house, he would just bark and go crazy,
Mm-hmm.
I would stay away from that fence. I'd be like, that's crazy. Like that dog's got problems. And there was a little boy who lived at that house that everybody liked him. He was older than me, older being like 2 years. I was 3rd grade, he was probably 5th grade. And I was walking home and almost home. And I was walking by this house, the door opened and the dog ran out toward me. And I wasn't scared because I had no reason to be scared of a dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you had dogs.
I had dogs. We had a Doberman. We constantly had dogs. We had big dogs, we had all the dogs. But it ran up to me and the boy's like, oh, he's okay. He's not going to do anything. I was like, oh, okay. And I can't even tell you what we're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about. But the dog comes behind me and he starts licking the back of my leg. And I was like, oh, he's nice. And then all of a sudden he bit me and he started shaking on my butt.
Oh.
Yeah. And he started shaking and shaking. And I started screaming because I was like, what the fuck? Like I was terrified. And I fall to the ground and he's shaking and tugging. And I'm just screaming.
That's a real attack.
Oh, it's a real attack. Yeah. So I get up. The little boy's trying to yell. He's a kid. He doesn't, I mean. Yeah. And I get up and the dog he stops for a minute and I go to cross the street and there's a truck. I don't know what it was. It was one of those big trucks. I don't think it was a semi, but it was a big truck coming and I didn't want to get hit. So the only option I could do is go back to where the dog was. He got me again. Yeah.
Oh my God.
The neighbors came out and I'm on the floor just screaming. Like I can't do anything at this point. Like the dog's on me. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Of all the stories like my parents tried to prepare you for when walking to school, it was never like, you're going to be attacked by a dog. Here's what you do. It was like, you're going to be stolen. You're going to be hit by cars. Like those are the things they tell you.
Yeah.
So this family that lived there, they were able to get the dog off me. The man, it was him and his wife. They were an older couple. He picks me up, takes me in their house. I'm bleeding and I'm freaking out and I'm shaking and they're like, we got you. You're okay. Like, where do you live? And my parents were always big, like, you have to know your address. You have to know our phone number. And this wasn't cell phone time. So it was like, that it is what it is. And I was like, and my neighbor, they know my mom's number and they know how to get a hold of my mom for her work, whatever. Right. And so they went and told the neighbor and then, it was so strange. Like I was in the house, the paramedic came in to check me out and they're like, okay, well, we're going to take you to the hospital. And I was like, okay. And when I came out, there was 2 fire trucks and 1 paramedic and like 2 police.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know. I know now that I've worked for municipal, I've worked for the city, I've worked in HR. I understand, at least in our area, and I don't know if it's everywhere. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But in our area, the paramedic's on the fire truck. It's not in the EMT is in the ambulance, but your paramedic is always in your fire truck. That's our city. I don't know if that's all cities, but that's how it is here. So I guess I don't know how bad they must have thought it was to bring two paramedics. But back then I was like, I don't know why there's two fire trucks here. There's no fire. So I was little.
Yeah.
And then I remember just like sitting in the ambulance. They didn't have the lights on. They didn't need them on because
Yeah.
I wasn't dying. I wasn't over bleeding or anything. And then I got to the hospital, and I don't know. I don't know how long it took for somebody to be there, but I got to the hospital. Someone stayed with me for a little while. I think my neighbor might have shown up first, maybe my neighbor's mom, because I think my parents weren't there yet, or something happened. But my parents showed up eventually, and then the parents of the dog, the kids' parents showed up.
Yeah,
They did, and they let my parents know and me know that they put the dog down. I think now there is.
I was gonna ask you, did that dog disappear after that?
No, they told me. They told us. They made it very clear that dog's being put to sleep. But I think now, I don't know if that's always the case, because I've seen on like TV shows like these dogs.
So many strikes. I think now. I think a dog can bite.
Yeah.
And not be put down now, but it if it's on record and they do it more than once, it's a thing, even if they bite another dog.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's, depending on, and I don't know, I'm not a dog whatever, but I think that there's some cases where dogs can be rehabilitated. That's what I've seen before. But in this case, it was the 90s and they weren't about to rehabilitate it, and my mom was thoroughly angry and my dad was upset, and so they made it very clear. And I don't know what that looked like financially. I don't know who covered those costs. I imagine homeowners insurance probably kicks in. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it would have been them being liable, and I guess that would be homeowners. Yeah.
So I just remember that happened, and then I remember I have the scars are very far from each other at this point because I'm an adult now, but they're kind of still there. I have one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a little dent under my butt.
Show me.
I'll show you. Prove it. But I just, what's funny? So I remember after that, I was terrified of dogs after that. Terrified. I didn't want to.
What about your own dogs?
Yes, I was terrified of them. I remember at one point there was like talk of building me like a little playhouse outside, and this is a little bit later, but I had told I remember drawing a picture for my dad, and I literally made like a gated walkway all the way to the playhouse that I want. I was like, but I just need this so the dogs don't come in. Like, I was afraid of them. And even so that was third grade. Later, when we got our dog, Dallas, her name was Dallas. She was a Chow Lab mix. I love that dog. She's great. But when we got her, I was terrified of her because she had Chow in her. You could see it in her tongue. And she was aggressive. My mom literally said, we're going to get this puppy because she's the most aggressive. And it was, at that moment, it was me and my mom living together. And so she wanted an aggressive dog to protect us. And it was to the point where it was aggressive, not to us. It was aggressive to anybody who tried to come in the house. So,
like that poor dog that got because
you
were by its house.
Exactly. We were creating the same problem. Exactly. And I say we, I mean her. But yeah, I was like that for a long time. And even, I think, even to the point when you got your dogs, when they were nibbling on my fingers, I was like, those dogs are biting. Like, that freaked me out.
Yeah, I know you were saying, like, luckily that didn't continue. It was
they're puppies. They were puppy nibbles.
They're brand new. Like, just, we got them from the shelter, and they're puppies. And so, yeah, but luckily it didn't turn into anything else.
No, they're just puppies. But like, even that, like something simple like that, like I thoroughly am. I don't have a good track record with dogs. I don't.
Even though you want dogs,
I do want dogs,
but
they scare me.
They scare me. Terrification. Yeah, I did have a dog come at me one time. I luckily did not get bit, but I went out to check the mail, and the neighbor's dog right to my house is right, ran out at me. Ran, and I tried to run back into the house. I barely escaped, and I believe they thought it was hilarious, but it was not, and it was truly terrifying, especially since that dog lived right next door and I had to see it every day. And that dog, I know that dog was aggressive.
Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't have many instances with it, but I didn't let. When a dog is chasing you, it is
terrifying.
So terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of dog it was. I have
no
idea.
Big one?
I bet it was probably like a pit or a pit mix.
Like if you were like, I think it was
Chihuahua. I think it was great. I did have some Chihuahuas, bark at me and try and bite me before actually, but I guess I'd never classify that as terrifying because they are small. So if a Chihuahua bites me, it could hurt, but it's not going to do the damage of a big dog. And like Courtney mentioned, so we adopted 2 animals from the shelter, and they are both big dogs. Well, I guess medium to big size dogs, but bigger than what I wanted, because with a small dog, if something happens, again, they're small. It's not going to hurt you too much. Also, their pee and poops accidents are a lot smaller. They make less mess. They're a lot portable, all the stuff. But we ended up with 2 bigger dogs. And even, like you said, like I'm aware, and if they're around me, like even if they're in my face giving me kisses, it's like, if something snaps in that dog, they could have you right then and there.
Yeah.
Compared to a Chihuahua. And so that Chihuahua doesn't scare me as much as a bigger dog. And even though my dogs are sweetie bobeeties, we don't know the past trauma of these dogs. Luckily, they're both puppies, so hopefully not too much trauma. But
even Domino, one of them, we could tell he was afraid of men. It sounds like he's more afraid of men.
Yeah, it was Dommy.
He's the younger of the 2, but he was a little scared of my brother, and then he was very scared of Aiden. He did not like my son. At first. They're fine. They're cuddled, they're great, everything. So we don't know like what happened. How did we get here? We don't know. Was it a man? Did someone hurt him? Did you see that story? Since we're talking about dogs, that bachelor, I think he was a bachelor, and he had an adopted dog this whole time, and it turned on him and bit him, and it's like video of it, and like they had to call 911 because he wouldn't let go, and they had to pin him down. It was a whole thing. Oh,
but you never know what's going to make a dog snap. It could be that one trigger that happened in that dog's past life to make them turn, and you don't know what it is. That's kind of always a concern with a bigger dog, and that's kind of always a risk that you take, so you have to be extra cautious.
I can't remember what he said. I guess y'all look up that story, but I think he said like there was an alarm or something had triggered him, and then he was a whole other person. He's like, this dog was laying with my kids every day. This dog was a part of our family. But I feel like the last I heard is they didn't put him to sleep. They had to rehome him because they were like, this isn't like, he's just got more problems than we can handle. So like, it's not his fault. We just can't handle that.
And they may rehome him to like they would classify it as probably somebody with no kids, like a single owner, or
someone who can deal with it,
a couple people, and then that way at least no kids get hurt, or no other animals. It's probably going to be a single. Well,
I can remember a time for you. Do you remember when you first got Loki and you had to give him a bath?
I wouldn't classify that as traumatic because it's expected, but it hurt. So
I just remember yelling.
Because it hurt. So we got Loki from the animal shelter as well. And when we got him from the animal shelter, so with the animal shelter that we went to get our 2 dogs, and we also got our cat from there. So we did adopt 3 animals with within a close span. They didn't come with fleas. So I don't know if it's different in the animal shelters or what it was, but the 3 that we just adopted from the Dallas Animal Services, they didn't have any fleas, and they were pretty well taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
Where we got Loki from was the Fort Worth Animal Shelter, and that's no dog on them or anything. It really isn't. But he had fleas.
Yeah.
He had a lot of fleas. And so...
And Loki's a cat. I don't know if we said, but Loki's a cat.
Yeah, Loki's a cat. He was a kitten. You know, we got him as a kitten. And he had so many fleas, I had to give him a bath to help get those fleas off. And I think, you know, flea baths, I think, are uncomfortable, especially you have those flea bites. So it's... Now I know you should put that, like, Dawn ring around their neck.
Yeah.
And so, but I was just using flea shampoo. And so I'm sure that had to sting. On top of cats generally not loving to be in water. And he just clawed the bejeez out of me. And yeah, that hurt. So I expected it, but it still hurt. I didn't give him a bath after that. I'm like, no, if he needs a bath, Ganlin can give him a bath. And he has had baths since. Like every now and again, Ganlin will put some water on him. Inside cats, you don't really need to bathe very often.
No.
And so just every now and again, you know, he does that, and he's fine. He doesn't claw the poop out of you or anything. Yeah. He's a lot older now. Also, he's
a distinguished gentleman now.
Yeah, what is he, 13 or however old he is now?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I did have a cat. He was an outside cat when I was younger. His name was Dr. Gray. And talking about animals who like to bite. And now I would warn anybody who came up to our house, but I said, you can pet him, but just be warned, he could likely bite and scratch you.
Yeah.
And most of the time he would. He didn't do that to us.
Yeah.
But to other people, he would. And I think that was his survival, to be honest, because we had other outside cats, because this was back in the day. Most of the cats were outside. Yep. That's how it was when my mom didn't want cats indoors. But most people, if you had a cat, it was an outside cat.
Yeah, and we had 2 indoor and I think 1 or 2 outdoor cats.
Yeah. And all those other outdoor cats, something would always happen. They say the lifespan of an outdoor cat's only a few years, right?
Yeah.
And that seemed to ring true with all the cats. They would get hit by cars. I think our neighbors across the street purposely killed one of our cats.
Yep.
We had one cat also. His name was Tigger. Or not Tigger. It was Tiger. Whatever. His name was Tiger. And he was with Dr. Gray and stuff for a long time. And then all of a sudden he wanted to be like, you know what? I want to go on adventures. And then he'd come back every now and again just with a new battle wound. And he'd come and get love for a while. And then he'd leave, come back with more battle scars. And then eventually he just didn't come back. But so Dr. Gray, he didn't allow strangers really near him or anything. And I think that is why the only reason RIP, and this was a traumatic event. We're going to have to stop this podcast at some point. But I'll end here. This was a traumatic event. So Dr. Gray was getting old. He was in his teens as well, maybe even late teens. He was outdoor cat. For an outdoor cat to live into his teens is ridiculous, especially back in the day. And his hearing was going and stuff. So I remember, and he liked to lay under our cars, but whenever we turned on our car, he'd always hear it and skedaddle. Well, I saw him under my car. So I was 16. Yeah, so I guess he was at least that, because I remember him my whole life. So I think he's probably like 18 or something like that. He was an old man. And I turned my car on, but I forget that he's under there.
Oh, no.
and I'm going to Subway with my friend. She lives down the street. I gotta go pick her up, the same one that I got into the accident with, where the police officer hit us.
Yes.
So I'm backing out, and I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. And so I immediately know what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just hoping I get out of the car. I can see him.
Oh.
And the most traumatic part, trigger warning, was his body was like flapping around and stuff. Like his head was almost like pushed to the ground, but his body was flapping around.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And I was like, maybe he's still alive, but I don't think he was. But so I called my dad. You know, emergency kept calling my dad because I don't know what to do. I'm 16, and what am, you know, he's still moving around, and like, anyway, my dad comes. My dad was such a trooper, and you know, got him and buried him in the backyard and stuff.
Oh,
but that is an event I think about still to this day, and multiple times a year still. And I remember, so when we came back to Texas, it might have, you know, maybe we hadn't come back to Texas. So it was possibly when I was living in Arizona, and we had to come back to Texas for my dad's funeral. And my mom was wanting us to go through all these photos. And she mentioned, she goes, oh, and then she brought up Dr. Gray. She's like, didn't one of you guys run him over in the car? And I was just like,
just casually.
My sister
just a fun story.
My sister was like, mother, you know,
she's traumatized.
I was just like, thanks, Mom. Yeah, I really like to. I already relived that enough.
That sounds like your mom.
Oh, but I felt so bad, and it's like I know he probably wasn't going to last much longer anyway, but he was still.
You didn't want to be the cause.
No, I straight up ran over my cat, and you know, and I loved that cat.
Yes.
And he was old, and even though he was old, I didn't want him to die by car.
Right. Wow.
I mean, he was still chugging along.
Yeah.
So on that note, I have no idea how long this podcast is because we've had to pause it a few times. Well, that's just this one session, so you can't go off of that. But unless you have something else, I think we can. We can wrap.
I will wrap here. I will end this on a funnier note.
I mean, you don't think my dead cat flopping around is funny?
It's great.
Like this.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
It was bad.
We had a stray cat. So when this cat started showing up, we thought it was a girl. I guess nobody wanted to check. So for a while we were calling it Princess. It was a long hair, almost like a tuxedo cat, but it's long hair. And we figured out it was a boy. And so it became Prince for a little while. Not very long though. And then it became Slash because his ears kept coming back with new cuts in them. So he was Slash because he was a gutter cat. And he was a mess. So we had two cats. I believe just two. We had one named Jojo's a whole other story. No, Jojo was good. Jojo was good. It was this other demon cat we had. But we had one named Jojo, and he was this beautiful gray, super muscular cat. And then we had a Burmese named Lacey, and those were two indoor cats. And here was this gutter cat who we allowed to come in the house sometimes, and it would this trash cat. But he was the sweetest boy. He smelled a little funky. He didn't have fleas, so he was allowed in the house. But it was really funny. There were times where, like, well, he would let you know. He would go to the door when it's time to go. He's like, I'm done with this house. I'm leaving. But then it'd be funny because if it would rain, if it was really cold outside, we would be sitting there and you'd hear this bang on the window. And the windows were from the ground. There was like steps going up to our front door. So from the ground, they were a good 4 feet from the ground.
Yeah, straight up was jumping.
And you would look, and you would open the window, and there he would be hanging on the what do you call it? Not the blinds, the screen, and he would just peek over and look at you, and then he would jump off and wait at the door. And we let him in. And there would be times where
hilarious.
Yeah, we wouldn't see him for a while.
Yeah.
He would bring us gifts. He would bring dead birds, squirrels, rats, and he would just leave them on our porch for us because we were taking care of him. And he would disappear and come back. There was one point, I think it's when we got Spawn, I think. So Spawn, I won't go into details, but he was Spawn because he was a little devil. We got him. He ended up being a teddy bear when he got comfortable, but this cat was fucking crazy. Like he would hide in the darkness. He was all black, and he would be hiding in the darkness. He was going to attack you if he didn't like you. We would laugh because Spawn was an indoor cat, but he was a rescue. There was one time where like he opened, like the door was cracked. He pushed my door open and came in, and it felt like it wasn't a consensual pet that I was getting. So I was laying in bed, and Spawn, heavy as hell, jumps on the bed, and I'm like, oh, this fucking cat, this fucking crazy cat. And I'm young. I'm 5th, 6th grade maybe, and he jumps on my chest. He then puts his hands around my neck, and he's knitting. So his claws are coming in and out, and he's purring, and he's biting the thing. And I was like, this is not welcome. And then he would wrap himself around your arm too, and he would just knit into your skin, and he'd be purring and everything. But if you try to move, he'd grab in tighter, and so you just had to like lay there. Anyway, all of this to say,
it'll take it.
Yes, I don't think Slash liked that Spawn was there. I think he was a more dominant cat. I think that's the cause. Because I think he was there at the same time. It was one of the animals, and I think it was that one that he didn't like. And so he had come in the house. We hadn't seen him in a while, but he had come in the house because the weather was bad. And I was like, yeah, come on in, buddy. And one of them freaked him out, and I think it was him. And so I'm like, let me help you. So I go to pick him up. And he turns around, and he sinks his claws into my head. So it was like one on both sides of my face, and he's holding on,
and that was Prince.
Yes, and I had wide eyes, like, okay. So, and he's growling, and he's freaking out. He's not letting go, and so I get to the back door, and I open it. He runs, and that was the last time we saw him. He was like, I am done with this place. I think
Spawn said, if you get back here, I will fuck you up.
And I think it was Spawn. I know it was one of the animals, but I'm almost positive it was him. But yeah, so fun outdoor cat stories.
Oh my gosh, so many fun animal stories, so many fun insect stories. Boy, we have it all. I just love it. Oh my God. Well, thank you for joining in. Thank you for listening. We'll try and get to these every week, but life happens and trauma happens. So it just is what it is. Yes. But
we were also to be fair, we were also on spring break. Both of our kids have spring break. However, they were one after the other week. So
yeah, they weren't the same week, which really stinks.
Yes.
But that's okay.
Yeah, we're back on schedule now. Everything's good.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.